Part 2 of our video on different ways to find slope. And what we're doing here is the word problem that is on the inside of the document. So we first have the word problem dealing with toads, and it says currently there are 200 Houston toads in Bastrop County. The Houston toad population has been decreasing at a rate of 20 toads per year. So it says to write an equation that models the linear relationship, identify the slope and y-intercept from the equation, make a table of values, then identify the rate of change in the table, label the graph, and that's what we're going to do down here, graph the equation and identify the x and y intercepts, then choose 2 points from either the table or the graph and solve for slope using the slope formula skeleton. And here, I don't know if you can see that very well, it says y sub 2 minus y sub 1, x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So let's go back to the beginning. So we have a decrease of 20 toads per year. So what we're going to have to do first is write our equation. So decreasing, this means minus. 20 toads per year is going to be our slope. So we're going to have the number of toads is going to be what the population started out to be, and then we're going to subtract 20 toads per year. To identify the slope, we look at the number or the coefficient of the x term. In this case, that is negative 20 because this is a decreasing function. And then we are also going to find the y-intercept, which is our initial amount, which was 200. So this is our y-intercept, this is our slope. Make a table of values. So I'm going to look at table of values here. We have x and y, and we're going to have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and see if I can get 5 in there. And our initial amount was 200, and then after 1 year we would have lost 20. After 2 years we would have lost a total of 40, and so on and so forth. So now I'm going to look at my change in y, which here is going to be a minus 20, which corresponds to my slope. That makes sense. Minus 20, minus 20, minus 20, minus 20. In order to make this table of values, all you needed to do was go back to y equals, do 200 minus 20x, and then look at the table and copy down a portion of the table into your notes. Here we had a change in x of 1 year, adding another year, then another year, and finally our last year that we're going to use. So what we have here is a rate of change of negative 20 toads per 1 year. Okay, so that simplifies to just be negative 20 toads per year. So that is our rate of change, also called our slope. Okay. Now we need to label our graph and graph using the intercepts. Okay, so from our parts of a graph, we know we need to have a title, so we're going to call this Houston toad population. Houston toad population. I'm just going to put pop period for short. This is our x-axis, and this will be our time in years. And then this is our y-axis. And this is going to be the total population. I have room here, so I'll go ahead and write out the word population. So here we have total population for our y-axis. For our x-axis, we're calling that time in years. Now, this I can go ahead and count out by ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and keep going from there. For this y-axis, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So we've got 200 where we need to start, and then we're going to come down from there. So let's see, if I counted by 20, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, 200. So we could go ahead and count by 20s here. So 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, and then 200. So you go ahead and put all of those in there. And this, of course, is 0. So what we've done here is label the y-axis and count by 20s, and then count the time in years. So now we just start with our table of values. 0 goes up here at 200. I'm going to go ahead and that's our y-intercept. So I'm going to do that in blue. And then from there, we're just going to count down 20 each time. So we go down 20 over 1, down 20 over 1, down 20 over 1, down 20 over 1, and just continue using that slope. Or you could look at the table of values in the calculator. And this last one, though, we labeled that. There's a 10. And this one is going to be our x-intercept. So our y-intercept is here, our x-intercept is here, and they wanted us to identify those. So here's our x-intercept. Is at the point 10, 0. And then up here is our y-intercept. Right here's the y-intercept. And that is at the order pair 0 to 100. So our x-intercept and our y-intercept, we need to look at what they represent. For our y-intercept, that is the initial population. That's where we started. And for our x-intercept, that is the time for the population to be 0. I'm going to go ahead and do that as pop to reach 0. So there's no more left. Okay, so here we have a title. We have counted accordingly. We have a we're counting by ones here. We're counting by 20s there, but we have a standard form of counting for both our x and y axis. We have labeled what each of those represents. Now we are going to go to the bottom part here, which is choose 2 points from the table or the graph and solve for slope using the slope formula. So I'm going to go ahead and choose this point here, which is 180, 180, and I'll choose this point here, which is 680. Whoops, 6, 80. So what I have to do first is identify the x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. So this is my first point, so I'm going to call this x sub 1, y sub 1. And this bottom one is my second point. And so I'm going to label that x sub 2, y sub 2. And then just plug those values into the formula. So y sub 2 is 80, so this is where y sub 2 goes. So I'm just going to put an 80 here. And then y sub 1 is 180. So I'm going to do 180 in this location. X sub 2 is 6. And x sub 1 is 1. So if you take and put this into your calculator, you're going to get negative 100 over positive 5. And that will simplify to be negative 20. So this is part 2, where we have the inside of the graph, or the inside with the graphing and the writing the equation. Because it's decreasing, we need to subtract by whatever rate they told us. We use the calculator and y equals to help us fill out the table. We can then get our change in y over change in x to show that the rate of change was negative 20 toads per year. We found out what our x and y intercepts represent and where they are on the graph. And then we had the slope formula at the bottom. And then in another video, you see where it is, which page to paste this on into your composition book for your notes. So this is 4 ways to find slope.